Hi everyone. Have you ever been out to a restaurant where you witness misbehaving people to the point where their behavior makes you so uncomfortable? Well, today's Reddit story is exactly about that. In fact, I like the ending to this one. It's from the subreddit Petty Revenge and is titled The Demon Family from Hell. This story happened a very long time ago when I too was a child. For context, my mom was at that time a working single mother and we lived in a different state. My brother and I often were around other family members because my mom had to work so much, and so it wasn't uncommon for my aunt, uncle, mom, and grandparents to be with us. This particular day was special. I don't remember exactly why, but we had gone out to a nice steakhouse. It was a chain restaurant. Well, this chain restaurant was fairly empty apart from this family that was across from us. There was a mom, dad, and 3 kids that were just awful. The dad was screaming, fighting with the mom. The mom was constantly fighting with the poor waitress. The toddler in the booster was screaming, and the 2 older kids were running around like they were headless. It was horrible to watch. Now, my brother, aunt, uncle, mother, and I are all at this restaurant watching this family treat the staff like absolute hot garbage. We happened to get the same server, and all of us made an effort to be sweet to this poor server. Even as a kid, probably around 6 or 8 years old, I remember she was actively wiping tears every time she came from trying to serve the jackass family. We politely tried to eat our meal while giving death stare Midwest style disapproval of this family. Here's where it gets crazy. The server had enough of their crap she's been handed, and the kids from hell. After telling the family several times to collect their kids and the parents refusing, she brought backup. Now the manager was trying to talk to them and was getting frustrated. Eventually, it escalated and the father started threatening the server and the manager. The server came up to the table and apologized profusely, thanking us multiple times for being a good table. She then turned to my brother and I and thanked us for being good kids and sitting still for the dinner. With the parents and the kids still screaming and yelling at the manager, the server brings ice cream to both my brother and I on the house. Both of us thanked her, and my brother, being the older crap he was, made sure to get the attention of the other kids with me and him eating ice cream. The 2 kids sees us and starts yelling at my brother and I, screaming and crying that they didn't get ice cream. They yelled at the waitress and their parents for ice cream. Now, the other family is demanding to get ice cream because they did for us. The manager basically tells them to F off and calls police to make sure they left the restaurant. Finally, after the demon family left, the manager came over and gave us the entire meal for free and a gift card. It was a very nice gesture. My family made sure to tip the server a very good amount of money, and we all took turns apologizing for them and making sure the manager and server were both okay. Now, 10 plus years later, I still think about the look those brats had when we both had ice cream and they didn't, and the added bonus of the parents' fear when they saw the cops to escort them to the parking lot. I love this revenge story because it's basically not really petty revenge, but I feel like it's more of a karma more than petty revenge. And it seems like the commenter seems to agree because most of the comments have said revenge is a dish best served cold. And another one says, I believe revenge is a 30-second flavor. I actually have a somewhat similar story to this. When I was probably around 10 or 11 years old, I was out to dinner with my family. In fact, it was actually with extended family members. So we were at a restaurant and we're all eating dinner, but I had little cousins who decided that they didn't want to sit still for dinner. So instead, they ended up running around the restaurant, all going crazy and not listening and yelling and bothering other patrons at the restaurant. We have told them several times, like, hey, stop running around, come and sit down, you need to eat your food, do not bother other people. But they just refused. They were like wild animals, like they were just all hyped up on sugar or something, and they just didn't want to listen. It got to the point where the manager had to come over to our table and be like, hey, you need to get these kids to sit down and behave. They are bothering other people and other people are complaining. And my aunt and uncle, they tried to say, oh, I'm sorry, try to say, okay, kids, sit down and behave. But kids had no intention of listening. And so they sat down for a few minutes and then off they go, running around the restaurant, almost running into waiters and other servers who had been carrying really heavy and hot food around. And where there's a few times where they almost knocked or ran into the waiters or servers and almost dropped the dishes that they were holding onto the floor and caused an accident. And even then, my aunt and uncle, they didn't really do anything. They just continued their conversation. And me witnessing this whole thing, and I was like, I cannot believe this. I decided to go up to my cousins and grab them and be like, hey, you guys need to sit down and behave or else we're all going to get in trouble. And again, they just sat down for a few minutes. They said, okay, we're going to behave. But next thing I know, they're off again, running around this restaurant. It got to the point where the restaurant manager came over and be like, look, if you do not get these kids under control, we will have to kick you out of this restaurant. And I think that really, got my not my parents, but my aunt and uncle to realize, oh no, this is a really big thing that, we don't want to get kicked out of this restaurant. It's embarrassing, So finally, we quickly packed up whatever leftover food that we had, and we just quickly paid for the bill and just left. Now, I don't know if my aunt and uncle or my parents gave a nice tip for all the trouble that my cousin had caused, but regardless, I will never forget that incident. And now, as a parent, remembering how embarrassing it was to have the manager come over to our tables to let us know that we're going to get kicked out of the restaurant if my cousin doesn't behave is a constant reminder of me teaching my kids to behave properly at a restaurant. To sit down, do not run around, causing trouble by just going all crazy and nuts. And to, if they're bored, that they should find ways to entertain themselves that involves them not getting out of their seats. And my story happens when it was before iPads and, smartphones were involved. So I can kind of understand for little kids, not being well behaved because they're bored, but still, they should respect and listen to adults in this situation where, hey, if adults are telling you to stop acting out, then you should listen and be respectful. Anyways, have you guys ever encountered a horrible family in a restaurant? What did you guys witness? I would love to hear it in the comment. And if you like these type of stories, remember to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.